And the National Safety Council.
The National Safety Council.
The National Safety Council.
And the National Safety Council says
a dramatic spike in traffic deaths, a record number of drug overdoses. As the COVID-19 pandemic drags on, there are distressing indicators that more Americans are engaging in risky behavior.
There is an effect from the pandemic. And certainly it has shown up in the way that we show up at work, the way we show up for our families, the way we are behind the wheel, and certainly the decisions we make when we have the choice to consume substances.
More than 38,000 people died on U.S. roads during the first year of the pandemic. That's the most since 2007. When it comes to substance abuse, the National Safety Council says U.S. employers should step up to increase job benefits to include more treatment and recovery services. But for now, this epidemic within a pandemic shows no signs of slowing down.
And we have managed to really undo the progress in safety that we have made over the last 15 years, over the last 2 years.
Mark Chung with the National Safety Council says more people aren't just speeding, they're choosing not to wear a seatbelt and getting behind the wheel when they aren't sober.
We're definitely headed in the wrong direction, and I can't call this anything other than a national epidemic.
Obviously, buckle up. It's one of the most important things you could possibly do to help allow yourself to survive if something bad happens. Don't drive distracted. Slow down. We're just seeing huge impacts of increased speed on the roadways. It really increases your likelihood of dying in a crash if you're speeding, and also if you're unfortunate enough to impact a pedestrian, the speed your vehicle is driving directly impacts the survivability of that collision for the pedestrian.
In New York, the woman driving this car was drunk when she plowed across a front yard and smashed into a house.
People are not wearing their seatbelt. They're driving impaired. And they're also speeding. We lose over 100 people on average each and every day in this country as a result of car crashes.
Drivers are obviously a problem, but how can cars and roads be made safer?
At the National Safety Council, we are very hopeful that the new infrastructure bill that was signed into law last month will help increase the safety margins on our roadways. There are many good safety provisions in that bill. One of those is what's called the safe system approach. Safe system approach means that people make mistakes, but the cost of those mistakes on the roads should not be that they lose their lives. Therefore, how can we change the way that our infrastructure is designed to add in safety margins?
I'm NBC 10's Lauren Make. We begin today with an issue that can change your life in seconds by our actions behind the wheel or the actions of another driver. We're talking about distracted driving. New research finds the danger is very real and getting worse. According to the National Safety Council, on a typical day, about 8 people are killed and hundreds more are injured in distracted driving crashes.
An average of 8 people are killed every day in the U.S. due to distracted driving. That's according to the National Safety Council.
Well, during the pandemic, there were fewer cars on the roads, yet car-related deaths are up significantly.
Shannon Halligan joins us now to explain how part of the problem is due to distracted driving.
Yeah, how often have you been on the road and you look over at someone and they're looking down at their phone, maybe texting, or maybe they have their phone up to their ear talking? Far too often. We all know it's not safe or legal, and for those who have lost loved ones because of this dangerous behavior, it's devastating. Megan Geltz was 22 years old, the mother of a young daughter, and on her way to her parents' house when her car was struck by a driver who was texting.
He traveled 347 feet and there were no skid marks at all. And that's what happens in these distracted driving crashes. People don't slow down before they hit the pile.
On February 29th, 2016, Megan's dad, Tom Geltz, got a call no parent should ever get.
she died at that scene. And unfortunately, she was pregnant at the time of the crash, and so we lost a grandson as well. He should be about 5.5 years old right now.
Now, Tom works with the National Safety Council, or NSC, which is based in Itasca. He advocates for stricter laws around distracted driving and hopes by telling Megan's story, he can stop these preventable deaths.
You relive the crash, and you relive the time that you spent with your daughter, and you see the pictures, and it's like right in front of your face. But if I can save a couple people's lives by talking about what I'm doing, it's worth it.
But according to Jenny Burke with the NSC, risky road behaviors have only increased during the pandemic.
We had made a lot of headway prior to COVID starting, and unfortunately, all of those behaviors sort of took a step back during COVID. And so we, even though we had less people driving on the road during COVID, we had more fatalities.
Preliminary data released by the NSC estimates more than 46,000 people died on U.S. roads last year. That's a nearly 18% increase compared to 2019. Part of the problem is distracted driving.
When you look down at your phone and then you look back up at the road, it takes you 4.6 seconds to actually focus on the road again. That's the length of a football field if you're driving.
It's a behavior people can stop before it's too late.
I just feel her needling me in the back going, keep going, Dad, keep going, try to make a little bit of a difference on this, even though I don't even think I'm making any difference. But I keep going for her and for my granddaughter and all the little kids out there, all of your kids, because they deserve better.
Workplaces have been invested in keeping employees safe from COVID, but there's also new emphasis on total worker health.
Whether they're sick, hurt, suffering mental fatigue, suffering distress of some kind. And in those cases, performance and productivity goes down, absenteeism goes up. This will lead to significant safety issues, no matter what industry you're in or what type of work you're doing.
That's John Doney. He focuses on emerging issues within workplaces for the National Safety Council. He says the pandemic has brought new urgency to employers around prioritizing both physical and mental well-being. In a recent NSC survey, workers who reported feeling unsafe or very unsafe at work were nearly 3 times as likely to experience clinical diagnosis levels of depression and anxiety symptoms. Feeling unsafe can mean a variety of things.
Feeling comfortable to raise your hand and express an issue, right? If you see something that potentially could cause you or others harm, if you see something that just creates a tingle in your gut and you say, that doesn't look right, that doesn't feel right. Or maybe, conversely, you're put in a position where perhaps you're a minority population, an underserved population, and there's just cultural pressure in the organization in a way that makes you uncomfortable. And that could be direct harassment, certainly. It could be bullying. It could be much softer, much more pervasive and harder to pinpoint.
NSC has resources for employers like perception surveys and cost calculators. It found organizations on average spend more than $15,000 per year for each employee who experiences a mental health issue. But employers that support mental health see a return of about $4 for every $1 invested in treatment. Employees are encouraged to speak up.
Just create that space for even 5 minutes for everyone to say, here's what's on my mind. Maybe it's personal. Maybe I just, I had an argument last night with my family, or my mom's in the hospital, or whatever else it is. You don't need to be specific. You don't need to be a worker saying, I'm going to put myself out on a limb and say, hey, I'm depressed or I'm anxious. You can just say, hey, this is what I've got going on in my life right now. And maybe I should, take a step back today.
More companies are expected to roll out vaccine mandates. An advisory and insurance firm found more than half of businesses surveyed said they would have some sort of vaccine mandate by the end of the year. Right now, about 1 in 5 have some sort of vaccine requirement, and just under 1 in 3 are offering or considering offering a financial incentive to get the shots.
Clearly, everyone needs to think about this for their business, for their employee base, and for the risk that's inherent in how they do their business and interacting with others. And we know it's not a one-size-fits-all.
The National Safety Council is calling on all employers to require COVID vaccines. They've laid out different levels of vaccine requirement approaches, everything from an honor system to hard requirements within workplace environments. Now, the tiers that might be better for one company versus another come down to risk.
And I think sometimes it's really important for an organization to understand where they are on that continuum so they can communicate clearly what they're doing and why.
A recent survey conducted by NSC found when employers required vaccines, 35% more workers got the shot. The National Safety Council also found new job postings with the vaccine requirement have jumped 90% in the last couple of weeks.
That's what we're seeing now from a lot of leaders across industry, is they're taking that action now, not because they have to, but because they know it's the right thing to do.